Marcus's investment firm prided itself on ethical business practices. Their clients included pension funds, charitable organizations, and family trusts, all entities that would flee at the first hint of scandal. When our evidence went public, Marcus wouldn't just lose his marriage, he'd lose his career, his reputation, and his freedom. My phone buzzed with a text from David. "Package delivered. The board meeting is tomorrow at 9 a.m. I had to admire David's transformation over the past 2 months. The broken, defeated man I had first met had evolved into a formidable ally. His photography skills had proven invaluable, but it was his analytical mind and attention to detail that made him truly dangerous. He had uncovered financial irregularities that even my private investigator had missed. "There's one more thing," Patricia said, sliding a document across the table. "David's divorce papers. Rebecca won't be getting anything either. Adultery might not affect property division in New York, but fraud certainly does." The web of lies Rebecca and Marcus had woven was about to collapse spectacularly. Rebecca had been using her position as Marcus's assistant to embezzle money from his clients, thinking she was clever enough to cover her tracks. She wasn't. David had followed the paper trail with the precision of a forensic accountant. That evening, I returned to our penthouse for what I knew would be the last time. Marcus was already home, pacing in the living room with a glass of scotch in his hand. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said as soon as I walked in. "Of course, darling, what's on your mind?" I kept my voice light, innocent. He ran his hand through his silver hair, a gesture I had once found endearing. "Tomorrow, when we meet with the lawyers. I know this is difficult, but I think we should keep things simple. Clean break, minimal complications." I nodded thoughtfully. "You're probably right. No need to drag things out unnecessarily." Relief flooded his features. He thought he had won. He thought I was going to meekly accept his terms and walk away with nothing. He had no idea that tomorrow would be the day his entire world came crashing down. "I'm glad you're being reasonable about this," he said, moving closer. "I know I haven't been the best husband lately. I've been distracted with work, and I know that's affected us. The audacity was breathtaking. Even now, faced with divorce, he couldn't bring himself to confess. He was going to let me sign those papers, believing that our marriage had simply grown cold, that we had grown apart naturally. "These things happen," I replied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Sometimes people just change." That night, I packed a single suitcase with my most important possessions. My grandmother's jewelry, some photographs from my childhood, a few pieces of art that held sentimental value. Everything else, the designer clothes, the expensive gadgets, the luxury items that had once seemed so important, I left behind. As I prepared to leave our bedroom for the final time, I caught sight of our wedding photo on the nightstand. We looked so young, so hopeful. I had loved that man with every fiber of my being, would have done anything for him. But that man no longer existed, if he ever had. I slipped off my wedding ring and placed it next to the photograph. Tomorrow, Marcus would learn the price of betrayal. Chapter 4. Checkmate. The conference room at Patricia's law firm felt like a courtroom as I walked in the next afternoon. Marcus was already seated at the polished mahogany table, his lawyer beside him. He smiled when he saw me, that charming grin that had once made my knees weak. Today, it made me sick. "Sarah, you look beautiful," he said, standing to pull out my chair. "The perfect gentleman, even in divorce." "Thank you," I replied, settling into my seat. Patricia sat beside me, her expression unreadable. Marcus's lawyer, a thin man named Gerald Fitzpatrick, cleared his throat. "Well, shall we get started? This should be fairly straightforward since both parties have agreed to the terms." I smiled. Actually, I'd like to make a few changes. Marcus's confident expression faltered slightly. Changes? Sarah, we discussed this. I thought we agreed to keep things simple. Oh, we did, I said, nodding to Patricia. She opened her briefcase and began pulling out photographs, spreading them across the table like a dealer shuffling cards. The blood drained from Marcus's face as he recognized the images. Marcus and Rebecca entering the hotel. Marcus and Rebecca at expensive restaurants. Marcus and Rebecca shopping for furniture for their secret apartment. What is this? He stammered. Evidence, I said calmly. Evidence of your year-long affair with Rebecca Chen. Evidence of the apartment you've been renting together. Evidence of the money you've been spending on her using our joint accounts. Gerald Fitzpatrick picked up one of the photographs, his professional composure cracking. Marcus, you didn't tell me about any of this, but I wasn't finished. Patricia pulled out another set of documents. We also have evidence of embezzlement, insider trading, and the misappropriation of client funds. Your affair partner has been quite busy stealing from your clients, Marcus. Marcus's face went from pale to green. That's impossible. Rebecca would never. Your girlfriend is currently being arrested, I interrupted. The FBI raided your office about an hour ago. I'm surprised you haven't heard. His hands shook as he reached for his phone. 17 missed calls. 23 unread messages. His world was collapsing in real time. The SEC has frozen your assets pending investigation, Patricia continued. Your partnership at the firm has been terminated. And your clients are already filing lawsuits. I leaned forward, my voice soft but deadly. Did you really think you could steal from me, Marcus? Did you think I was some naive little wife who would just roll over and let you destroy everything I've worked for? Sarah, please, he whispered, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Fix this? I laughed, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Marcus, you don't understand. This isn't just about the affair. You and Rebecca have been planning to rob me blind. You've been using her to gather information about my business, my finances, my personal life. You thought you could manipulate me into giving you everything and then disappear with her. I pulled out my phone and showed him a video David had taken just that morning. Rebecca in handcuffs being led out of the FBI field office. Her perfect composure finally cracked, tears streaming down her face as reporters shouted questions. David Chen sends his regards, by the way, I said. You remember David, don't you? Rebecca's husband, the one you thought was too pathetic to be a threat. He's been working for me for the past 2 months, documenting everything, every lie, every theft, every moment of betrayal. Marcus's lawyer was frantically flipping through the evidence, his face growing paler with each page. Marcus, I can't represent you in this. You need a criminal attorney, immediately. The beautiful irony, I continued, is that while you were busy planning to take everything from me, I was ensuring that you'd leave with nothing. The prenup you insisted on 12 years ago, the one that protects your assets in case of divorce. Well, it has a lovely little clause about marital misconduct and criminal activity. Everything you own now belongs to me. I stood up, smoothing my black dress. I'm keeping the penthouse, the house in the Hamptons, your car collection, and I'd consider it compensation for 12 years of lies. Marcus finally found his voice. You can't do this, Sarah. I'll fight you. With what money? I asked. Your accounts are frozen, your job is gone, your girlfriend is in federal custody, and your wife just became your worst nightmare. I picked up the divorce papers and signed them with a flourish, my signature bold and confident. Then I slid them across the table to Marcus. Sign them, I said, unless you'd prefer to fight this battle from a jail cell. His hand trembled as he took the pen. The man who had once commanded boardrooms and controlled millions of dollars was now broken, defeated, completely at my mercy. As he signed his name, I felt no satisfaction, no triumph. only a profound sadness for the marriage that could have been, and a fierce determination to rebuild my life on my own terms. 6 months later, I was standing in my gallery, watching David hang his latest photography exhibition. His work had evolved, becoming more powerful, more emotionally resonant. His divorce from Rebecca had been finalized, and he was slowly rebuilding his life. "Thank you," he said, stepping back to admire a particularly striking portrait. "For everything. For giving me a chance when I had nothing left. We saved each other," I replied. "That's what partners do." Marcus was serving 5 years in federal prison for embezzlement and fraud. Rebecca had received 3 years and was already plotting her next move from behind bars. But I was free. Free from lies, free from betrayal, free to build something real. I had signed the divorce papers smiling because I knew something Marcus didn't. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting everything. Chapter 1. The Perfect Storm. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of our Manhattan penthouse as I sat in my home office, staring at the divorce papers spread across my mahogany desk. Each page felt like a dagger, but I kept my expression neutral. Marcus would be home soon, and I needed to appear completely unsuspecting. 3 months ago, I had discovered my husband of 12 years was having an affair with his personal assistant, Rebecca Chen. The revelation came not through suspicious behavior or lipstick stains, but through a private investigator I had hired when our joint bank statements showed mysterious expenditures. What I found shattered my world. Luxury hotel receipts, jewelry purchases, and even a lease for a downtown apartment under both their names. But Marcus didn't know that I knew, and he certainly didn't know about the nuclear option I had already set in motion. The front door clicked, followed by the familiar sound of his Italian leather shoes against our marble foyer. "Sarah, I'm home!" His voice echoed through our 4,000-square-foot apartment, carrying that same warm tone that had once made my heart flutter. Now it made my stomach turn. "In the office," I called back, quickly shuffling the divorce papers into a neat pile. My wedding ring caught the lamplight, a 3-carat diamond solitaire that had once symbolized forever. Tonight, it felt like a prop in an elaborate performance. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the October storm outside. At 45, he was still the handsome investment banker who had swept me off my feet. At a charity gala years ago, his navy suit was immaculate, his smile practiced. "Working late again?" he asked, loosening his burgundy tie. "You know what the doctor said about stress." The irony wasn't lost on me. He was concerned about my stress while actively creating it. "Just reviewing some contracts for the gallery," I lied smoothly. My art gallery in Soho had been my sanctuary throughout our marriage, and thankfully it was entirely in my name. He moved behind my chair, placing his hands on my shoulders. Once, this gesture would have melted my tension. Now, I had to fight the urge to recoil. "How about we go to that new restaurant in the village this weekend? Just the two of us." "That sounds lovely," I replied, knowing full well he'd likely cancel last minute for some emergency that would actually be time with Rebecca. After he left to shower, I opened my laptop and checked my encrypted messages. There it was. Confirmation. From David Chen, Rebecca's husband. Our plan was proceeding exactly as scheduled. David had been easier to find than I'd expected. A thorough investigation revealed he was a struggling freelance photographer, completely unaware of his wife's double life. When I approached him 6 weeks ago at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, showing him the evidence of our spouse's affair, his devastation had been palpable. But devastation quickly turned to determination when I proposed our alliance. "Sarah," his reply read, "everything is in place. The contracts are signed. Marcus won't see it coming." I smiled, genuinely for the first time in months. Phase 1 of my carefully orchestrated revenge was about to begin. That night, as Marcus slept peacefully beside me, probably dreaming of his secret life, I stared at the ceiling and remembered the woman I used to be. Naive, trusting, willing to overlook the signs because I believed in the fairy tale we had built together. The Sarah who had stood at the altar 12 years ago, promising to love and honor this man, was gone. In her place was someone harder, smarter, and absolutely ruthless when it came to protecting herself. Tomorrow would change everything. Chapter 2. The Art of War. The next morning, I sat across from Marcus at our breakfast table, watching him scroll through his phone while sipping his Colombian coffee. The autumn sunlight streamed through our windows, casting long shadows across the imported Italian marble. Everything about our life looked perfect from the outside. The penthouse, the expensive art, the successful careers. But I now knew it was all built on lies. "I have a late meeting tonight," Marcus said without looking up from his phone. "Johnson Industries wants to move forward with the merger, so we need to iron out the details." Another lie. There was no Johnson Industries. Meeting. I had already confirmed that Marcus's evening would be spent at Rebecca's apartment, the one he thought I didn't know about. "Of course, honey," I replied, buttering my toast with practiced calm. "I'll probably stay late at the gallery anyway. We have the Morrison exhibition opening next week." After Marcus left for his office on Wall Street, I made my way to Soho. The October air was crisp, carrying the scent of roasted coffee and fallen leaves. My gallery, Meridian Contemporary, occupied a converted warehouse with soaring ceilings and exposed brick walls. It had taken me 8 years to build it into one of Manhattan's most respected contemporary art spaces. What Marcus didn't know was that I had been quietly moving assets for weeks. My lawyer, Patricia Hawkins, had helped me secure everything that was legally mine. The gallery, my personal bank accounts, even the vacation home in the Hamptons that had been a gift from my father, all safely protected. At 10 a.m. sharp, David Chen arrived at my gallery. He looked different from the broken man I had first met 6 weeks ago. There was a steel in his eyes now, a determination that matched my own. "Everything ready?" I asked, leading him to my private office. He nodded, pulling out a folder. "The contracts are all signed. Effective immediately. I'm your new head of security and private investigations. Salary, $120,000 annually, plus benefits." It was brilliant, in its simplicity. By hiring David as my employee, I had created a legitimate business relationship that would be perfectly legal when everything came to light. No one could accuse us of conspiracy or fraud. I had simply hired the most qualified person for the job, and David happened to be an excellent photographer with a background in security. "And Rebecca?" I asked. David's jaw tightened. "Still, has no idea. She thinks I'm struggling to find work, barely making ends meet. She's been distant lately, more distracted. I think she's getting ready to leave me." I felt a pang of sympathy for him. We were both victims of the same betrayal, both fighting to reclaim our lives. "She won't get the chance, not after today." David reached into his camera bag and pulled out a manila envelope. "The photos from yesterday's surveillance, they're damning." I opened the envelope and spread the photographs across my desk. Marcus and Rebecca entering the apartment building. Marcus's hand on her lower back as they walked through the lobby. Rebecca laughing at something he whispered in her ear. The intimacy was undeniable, captured in stark black and white. "Perfect," I whispered. "Absolutely perfect." The plan was elegantly simple. While Marcus thought he was orchestrating the perfect affair, I was orchestrating the perfect divorce. Every photograph, every document, every witness statement was building toward a moment when I would have complete control over the narrative. "There's something else," David said, his voice dropping. "I found their communication trail. Secret email accounts, burner phones, the works. They've been planning this for over a year, Sarah. They're not just having an affair. They're planning to take you for everything you're worth." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Rebecca's been feeding Marcus information about your business, dealings, your personal finances, everything. They think they can manipulate the divorce settlement to leave you with nothing while they ride off into the sunset with your money. The betrayal cut deeper than I had imagined possible. It wasn't just adultery, it was financial warfare. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated me. Then we make sure they get exactly what they deserve, I said, my voice steady as steel. Nothing. Chapter 3. The Final Gambit. 2 weeks later, I sat in my lawyer's office on the 40th floor of a midtown skyscraper, watching the city sprawl below us. Patricia Hawkins was known as the most ruthless divorce attorney in New York, and her reputation was well-earned. At 62, she had silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that could cut glass. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" "Approach, Sarah?" Patricia asked, reviewing the documents spread across her conference table. "Once we execute this plan, there's no going back." I nodded without hesitation. "Marcus wants to play games. Let's show him how the game is really played." The evidence David and I had gathered was overwhelming. Not only did we have photographic proof of the affair, but we had also uncovered Marcus's plan to hide assets and manipulate our divorce proceedings. What they didn't know was that I had been 3 steps ahead from the beginning. "The timing is crucial," Patricia continued. "Marcus is expecting you to sign the divorce papers tomorrow afternoon. He thinks he's cornered you into accepting his terms. Minimal alimony, no claim to his business interests, and a standard split of marital assets." "He's in for quite a surprise," I said, allowing myself a small smile. The real masterstroke wasn't just exposing the affair. It was the business partnership I had secretly formed with David's photography company. Over the past month, David had been documenting not just Marcus's personal betrayal, but his professional misconduct as well. We had evidence of him using company resources for personal expenses, manipulating client accounts, and even insider trading.